The views, ideas, and content of WellSeekers and their guests are their own opinions, and you should always seek additional professional help around any of the issues discussed here on WellSeekers.
And we're back on WellSeekers. Thanks so much for joining us as we continue the series we're calling the Rebuild Lab, rebuilding from the ground up mind, body, spirit, regardless of what dream you've lost or what you may be rebuilding. This series is for you. Our final guest in the series is a good friend of mine and someone who has definitely had to rebuild, not one time, but multiple times. And that's why we thought his story would be so impactful to have him on the show during the Rebuild Lab process. But his name is Jeff Hatch. He is a former NFL player who has gone through multiple rebuilds through the course of his life for various different reasons. Usually, our intros, as you know, I give info, research, but this is a very personal story, and this is an episode. I know we've had guests on that were experts, guests share personal stories related to expert information. This story is just so impactful on its own that I just want to let Jeff speak for himself instead of me telling you about him and his story. So we're going to jump into the interview. Before we do, though, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been a part of this series, and thank you to all of you for being a part of our family here at WellSeekers. We have been so excited to be back and share these stories, these solutions, these experts with you. If you've heard me or the other intros before, over 85% of what you see online now is fake information, the information that's made up, not validated, stories that aren't true, people that aren't true. Like AI has basically infiltrated. You don't even know if someone's human or real. One thing that I want you to know about WellSeekers is that we're all real. I'm real. The stuff that you're going to hear here is evidence-based, research-based. It's real. Our guests are real. They've been vetted. So in a time where you don't know if anything is fake or real, you can trust us here at WellSeekers. So we're so happy to have you here and to close out this series with just someone who has so much to share, and I know you're going to love him too. So we will be right back with Jeff Hatch on WellSeekers. And we're back on WellSeekers with our guest, Jeff Hatch. Jeff is a former NFL player and now currently a high-performance personal transformation coach. Jeff Hatch, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here with you.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very special series relaunch for me, and I have people on that I just truly appreciate and admire their stories and what they bring to the show. So thanks for taking the time to share your experience and what you're about to share with everyone about your own personal transformation.
Yeah, I'm grateful to do it. Grateful to be included.
So one of the things that is particularly interesting about your story is how many rises and then dips and then rises you've had. So can you tell us a bit about your story of rises and falls again?
Sure. Yeah, I think well, I think I think part of my falling has been related to my substance use disorder. So that's a piece of it that's always important to kind of like call out on the front end, because if you look at it, it's kind of like, wow, how are you doing this to yourself? And it's like, I don't know, it just helps me frame it to think of it like that. But I think I was a typical high achiever early, um, was pretty determined to be successful. And so, got my Ivy League degree, got drafted by the Giants in the third round, first team All American in college, President's Award for Community Service, all the things. Um, and really unbeknownst to me at that point, I had kind of set that precedent that I was going to achieve a lot because I thought it would make me feel better about myself inside. And I remember being like 22 and looking at the list and having checked like all the boxes, and I was still miserable and I had no idea what was to come next. And that was probably like kind of like the precipice before the fall the first time. Um, because that was really when my substance use disorder kicked up. And I'm pretty good at keeping the cover on it for a long time, which really comes to play in later. But, I spent those 4 years in the NFL really kind of like fighting that battle quietly. And then I went to treatment right after I retired. I had a spinal fusion in 2006 and immediately went to treatment thereafter and got sober and started to rebuild a nice little life for myself. And that lasted for about 8 years. And I had a surgery, a total knee replacement surgery, relative to some stunt work I was doing out in LA at the time, and relapsed, and nobody knew. And I kept it quiet. And it lasted about 4 years again. And at the end of those 4 years, I ended up a federal felon and on the national news and all of the things. And I've had to rebuild again since then. And it's been, honestly, in September will be 8 years again. So interesting timelines. So let's get me through December next year and I'll feel like maybe I'm getting somewhere. But yeah, so it's been interesting to kind of go through those processes both times because I was a different person in both of those situations. And um, you know, but here I am.
I mean, that was an incredible. I'm impressed at how condensed you made that story.
Well, there's a lot we could go with on that, right? I mean, you know me well, so like we could go really down any of those rabbit holes for a long time, but
Yeah. It just to peek down the rabbit hole. One first, I need to say I have known Jeff for a while, and one of the things that I've noticed this time around reconnecting is you are so authentically you, and I see your shirt that you're wearing. Is that your brand, by the way?
yeah.
Yeah. Wait, tell us about the brand. We're gonna give it a plug right
Cool.
now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
authenticity is everything is the brand. Um, it's a phrase that has just been so meaningful to me in this iteration of life. And I just thought it was like a good representation and a message that I wanted to see spread as far and wide as possible. And so I was like, let me trademark this phrase and throw it on some shirts and go with it. And we're just starting like t-shirts and sweatshirts, but it's been really neat to like wear it and have people say something. The first one, this is really funny. I'll tell a quick little story. I was in Arizona for business. I was in a hotel. I walk in the elevator, and I am a large human being, right? I'm 6'7". Right now, I'm like 285. So people often make comments to me about sports. Did I play? Was I a wrestler? All that stuff, right? And I got on the elevator, and this older gentleman was in there, and he looked at my shirt, and he goes, "That's a cool shirt. It's way better than some stupid sports team." Um, and I was like, "Yes, yes."
I love
So,
that.
that's the deal. Yeah, it's super important to me. It's a mantra for sure.
Yeah, so one of the things about this show, we have a shirt that says "real," which is essentially the same thing, right? Authenticity, and you are just so much more relaxed knowing you this sort of time around. I've been, like, taken back, like, even in our conversation, and I don't even think I've said it to you directly, but you have just been so much more what I am assuming is yourself, right? Like, comfortable in your body with your story, and I wonder if part of that is because when we met, you were sort of in that second phase, right? And just to dive down that rabbit hole a little, from 2000, when did you relapse this the second time, Jeff?
2000 November of 2013.
Okay. And so from 13 until 8 years ago, you were
Mhm.
active?
Until
Yeah,
17. Yeah.
until 17. And so in that time, what was that like living in a I mean, because everyone thought you were sober and quite publicly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, well, it's really interesting. it's interesting to me to kind of look from a viewpoint now back to that time and to think about where my head was in that time. And I really think that, you know, my substance use disorder had become activated again. And there was a combination of things that put me in a position where, and this is all my own doing, I felt unsafe disclosing that I was struggling. And so that was the basis, right? That's the first piece is I don't feel safe talking about the fact that I'm in relapse because I'm supposed to be this guy who's been sober for so long. And then from there, I have to craft a story in my mind that is palpable so I can continue the behavior. And that story for me was I've played in the NFL. I have a spinal fusion from that. I've done stunt work in movies and TV. I have a total knee replacement for that. I have these chronic pain issues. I'm going to use these medicines as they're prescribed. And no one would really understand that anyways. So I'm okay to do it because they don't get like what my life has been like and I'm fine.
And then that sort of transitioned into heroin
Heroin,
again. Yeah.
which was
So,
never a part of my story before.
can you tell us a bit about that transition and then out of that transition into where you are today?
Yeah. Yeah. This is the real juice, right? Good. Go for it. I just remember I was like 2 years into relapse, and what I had been doing after the knee replacement surgery, I had gone to a pain doctor, and they prescribed me fentanyl patches. And so once a month, I was driving back. I was up in New Hampshire working. I would drive back to Maryland where I had had the surgery and the doctor was, fill the prescription, and then drive back to New Hampshire once a month. So that was like 16 hours round trip. And I was doing it once a month for like 2 years. And I finally was just like, I'm so tired of doing this. And the thought came to me that like heroin's an opiate. It'll do the same thing these patches are doing, and it's gonna be a lot cheaper and easier for me to get. Like, I'm just gonna do that. And at the time, I I just walked out the door of my apartment in Manchester to the park across the street. The first guy I asked connected me to someone, and I got heroin. Um, and from there, like, really, like, as a guy who's in long-term recovery, I think this is a common story with people like me who have substance use disorder and, like, these kinda issues is this idea of, like, one is too many and a thousand's not enough, right? Like, so before long, I'm spending all the money I'm earning at my job on heroin. That job happens to be in treatment, and I happen to be like a very forward-facing person in that space, right? I'm like sitting on panels for recovery with senators, and you know, officials. And meanwhile, I'm like doing lines of heroin in the parking lot before I go in to do that. Um, and you know, as I'm spending all the money on the heroin, I go to the dealer and the guy I'm buying from says, "Hey man, if you'll, drive down the highway 4 exits and pick up my load and bring it back to me, I'll give you your personal use amount for free." And that makes sense. And now I'm trafficking. And it's like I look at it now and I go, "Oh my gosh," right? But it's I have to say that like when you are in the midst of like active substance use disorder, it truly is you are as dependent on the drug of choice that you are addicted to as you are oxygen. So like the decisions that are made are survival based. They are not. And if I can say one thing about, I don't want to skip over parts of my story, but I do want to say this while it's on my mind. The most difficult piece of the relapse for me and the publicity around it was that I was presented as some evil person who was like, you know, I was a bad human being. Um, and that doesn't feel like it's fair. I don't get to choose the consequences, right? I mean, people's opinions are their own, and I understand that people who don't have what I have would have trouble understanding. But it's always important for me to express to people that, like, I was happy to pay the consequences, and I'm not justifying my behavior by any means. The things I did were terrible, and like I absolutely deserve to get a federal felony for them and pay those consequences. But it's important for people to note, for me, in the midst of that relapse, I was under the influence and I was in survival mode. I was not behind some desk like, you know, Al Pacino in Scarface, like moving the levers of some maniacal plan, right? It's like literally a day to day survival. So, that happens. And then I got arrested in July of 2017. Um, no, wait, September of 2017 is when I got arrested. The guy I was driving for got arrested in July. They called me in September, and then I became part of this wonderful world of criminal investigations at a federal
Mm.
level.
Which I mean, we could do a whole episode on that, and hopefully you'll get to tell your story in length. But what you said something that's really important, I think, which is substance use disorder is just that. It's a disorder, right? And it's really hard sometimes to equate it with mental health, just like people that suffer from physical health conditions, right? It is a mental health condition. And sometimes it's hard to acknowledge that because of the things that happen when people are under the influence, right? But I you said it perfectly, like, there's consequences to what you did, but why you did what you did, that's an important thing to recognize, which is it's not malicious or because 'cause you're evil or because 'cause you're bad, it's because you struggle with substance use, right? Addiction. And, that's just the nature of the disorder. It's what happens, like, we don't do pleasant things when we're under the influence. I didn't do pleasant things when I was under under the influence, right? Like, that's just not how it generally works. Even when you don't have a substance use disorder, people generally don't do pleasant things, right? So, when you're chasing that, like, it's the insanity of the disease, right? So
Absolutely. And I think, like, you know, our system is built around um punitive reparations, right? And I think in the realm of criminal conduct and that piece, that's really where I mostly see. Well, I see it everywhere, but in particular, that lane of stigma um, is really profound because that influences people's perceptions of those of us with substance use disorder, right? You get placed in a category as a criminal, and I just think there needs to be some more differentiators in place when you look at, say, a violent criminal and someone with substance use disorder, or a dealer who is not someone that suffers from substance use disorder, or someone who is, you know, maybe selling drugs, but is only doing so to support the habit that they're under the influence of, right? I just think that it's a little too black and white still, and it creates a little bit of um, that stigma around substance use disorder and the public perception of it, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, the craziest thing to me is the fact that if we walked into a restaurant right now and got over there's a loudspeaker, we can get over it, and there's 100 people in the restaurant, and we said, how many people in here have themselves or know someone who has struggled with mental health or substance use disorder? And they felt safe, every single person will raise their hand. And yet we still keep it as if it's some hushed little secret to be talked about in the corner. So so and so doesn't hear, or what, it's like, man, I really want to see that change because um I think it's the only way we really make any progress.
I completely agree, right? There is the stigma around it, and the root cause of why people do what they do does matter, but there's not a lot of nuance in the law, right? It's not really a nuanced system.
Mm-mm.
You either broke it or you didn't, and it doesn't actually matter why, but it does matter why. Um, One of the things, Jeff, that you talk a lot about is rebuilding, right? I mean, you've had to rebuild multiple times. When you're rebuilding in the public eye, can you talk a bit about what that process was like for you rebuilding in the public eye?
Yeah, and I think I would talk about it more in reference to this time, right? The first time it was quiet. I was at a treatment center in Northeast Louisiana, and nobody knew who I was or cared about anything that was going on, and I could kind of do it in quiet. This time around, it was way more forward facing. And I think like looking at that piece of it, this kind of idea of the rebuild is like it was really to me became necessary to have like a really pronounced mindset shift in terms of really, gosh, I mean, it was everything, right? My value system, um, what I was going to determine success to be. Because at that time I was when I got fired from my job as a result of my relapse, and I had it, by the standard of society, I was doing well. Um, and then the next thing you know, I'm filling 18 wheelers at UPS, and my girlfriend at the time is driving me to to my shift because I don't have a car and I don't have a cell phone. Um, and if for me, if I'm going to make it through that, for me, it had to get really small. In other words, my value system had to shift. Like, okay, do I have a roof over my head today? Do I have food in my stomach? Are there any loving relationships in my life? Um, and also my timeline had to shrink significantly. And what I mean by that is I think a lot of us struggle with the idea of what has happened and what's going to happen instead of being in what is happening. And there was so much chaos and calamity around what the future could look like and what my past looked like that I found like the only silence in the storm was in the present moment. And so I really worked to stay there. And then isn't it crazy how like things happen, and if I do that stuff, wow, like miraculously the life of the material realm starts to improve. Um and get better. But I think we always I, I used to make the mistake of looking at that wrongly. And what I mean by that is if I saw someone driving a Mercedes Benz with Gucci sunglasses on, I thought they had it figured out. And like I don't do that at all anymore. Like I need to look you in the eyes and sniff you and talk to you for 5 minutes. And if I leave that conversation going like, wow, that person is a centered human being who has their priorities in order and cares about other people, dude, you're on a pedestal for me and I want to be like you. But the
Mhm.
material stuff just doesn't do that anymore, and I think I had to get there.
Yeah. I mean, I literally got goosebumps because that is life. Honestly, that is life. It's like, where are your values and priorities? And I couldn't care less anymore about like your car, your house, your stuff, right? Like, and it's fine to have nice stuff, but to have that be the tool that you're measuring success by, which again, at some point, I think I probably had that more than I'd like to admit. It's never been my epicenter, but it's been way more of a barometer at some point. And
Yeah.
it's just not it. It's not it. So, when you had to let go of those old pieces of your identity, what was the hardest part of letting go of what was your old identity? And what was the hardest part of letting it go?
Well, I think a lot of it always had to do with, like, the athletic piece of my background. And so it's really interesting that you asked that question. I've been exposed to a lot more former players than I'm used to being around in the past couple weeks, and it's been really interesting for me to hear their stories and how similar they are to mine in the sense that, like, I mean, I was talking my career was a disappointment, my NFL career, right? I mean, I was a 3rd round draft pick. There were very high expectations that I was gonna be very successful and play for a long time, and I lasted 4 years and started 4 games. Wah, wah. and so it was disappointing. And I kind of carry a lot of shame with that for a long time. And I was at this NFL alumni golf tournament a couple weeks ago. Um, and I sat down and I was talking to a bunch of the guys. And one guy in particular, he had been a first round draft pick. He had played for 10 years. And he was literally saying the exact same thing as me. Like, man, it just wasn't what I hoped it would be. I didn't live up to the expectations. And, I got a lot of shame around that. And it was like this light bulb moment for me of like, oh my gosh, we're all like that. Um, and I've had another experience with another former player since then. It was the exact same thing. And so I think for me, I was lucky the first time I got sober in the sense that I went to treatment right after I retired. And so, like, I kind of got this new identity as a man in recovery handed to me. Um, but even still, what happens a lot with other athletes I've seen or anybody who's in a public facing position when they get into recovery, you get kind of put out there. Uh, People want to hear you talk. And, you get this, you almost reshape a new identity as like the recovered athlete or entertainer and it's like, I just remember thinking, I think back now and it's like probably 2 years sober the first time I was getting invited to go talk places and I literally had nothing to say. I mean, I had a lot to say. I could fill the time, but I wasn't saying anything because I hadn't experienced anything yet. Um, so I think like I carried that persona for a very, very long time, and it was very freeing to to really fully shed it. And I had to, you know what I mean? I had to just really let all that go because at the time, I didn't know if I'd ever even have an opportunity to work in the treatment space again, let alone like have any type of voice or anything like that. I just had to like get okay with me. Um, But that's an incredibly difficult thing, and I think I'm gonna sound a little woo-y for a second, so I apologize on the front end. But I think existentially, all of us know that we're on this rock, spinning around a sun, being held by gravity on this thing called Earth in this gigantic, massive universe, right? And if you can existentially perceive that, it's hard not to feel a little small. And so we create these identities and attach ourselves to things so that we feel bigger and more. And what a fun outfit to wear. A professional athlete. Everyone thinks you're great. You're like a hero. You're like a hero. How fun. Um, but come on. Like what really matters. And I think that's been the learning process for me is like being okay with being that tiny little grain of sand on the beach, but also knowing that like um the more I can strip away the identity, the more I can connect with you. We get connected to that oneness within all of us, right? And like I know that you know what I'm talking about because I can feel it from you. Um and I think that's kind of like I don't know if I answered your question even. I'm probably just rambling at this point, but that's kind of like how I feel about the perception of identity.
Yeah. No, you did answer my question, and even if you didn't, y it was a beautiful monologue of your thoughts about humanity. No, but I mean, there's so much truth in it, right? Like, and I've never actually thought about it in that way. I always think of it as like, what can I do to serve? Right. But there probably is, if we take a step back, I think what you're talking about is like, is ego, right? To some degree of like that ego to feel like we are something. Right? Instead of leaning into, like, serving to feel like we are something, and or not even to feel like we are something, but to be something, right? And that's the difference to, like, being in it and having it be authentic and deep and real for the right reasons as opposed to, like, I'm gonna put myself out there so the light shines on me, instead of, like, the light shining through me and now I'm, like, serving, and that's, like, warming me, right? Like, that's
Write that down.
that's what I think you were saying. Is
Yeah,
that
you just said it like
okay.
80 times better and faster. So yeah,
No,
yeah.
but, I mean, I agree, right? Like, that's deep work. How did you get to that point? Because it is deep work.
Survival.
Yeah.
I'm a guy that I don't think I ever would have done that work if it wasn't if my life didn't depend on it, which it really did. I mean, we can joke about it, but truthfully, like, the day I got arrested was September 17th of 2017. September 18th of 2017, which is my sobriety date, the DEA, the FBI, and the New Hampshire State Police showed up in my apartment. And at the end of that 4-hour grilling, I was now part of this federal investigation. And like, I couldn't tell anyone what had happened. I couldn't drink and I couldn't drug and I couldn't change anything in my life, right? Those are the stipulations. And so that was the darkest space in my life so far. Because I just didn't see, there was no way forward in that moment, right? I mean, not only like light at the end of the tunnel, right? I didn't even, there was no tunnel, it was just some abyss of like, oh my gosh. And I really got to that place of like, okay, I need to either like dig in, go inside and start doing some work on the internal piece of myself or end it. And those were the two options. And really for me, aligning with some like of the 12-step ideology, right? Like this prayer and meditation became vital pieces of my existence. And I think that those are practices that are easy to fake the funk on, so to speak, right? It's easy to say I do those things. But when for me it was like I needed to either find some peace within myself or I was going to kill myself. That energy being put towards those practices is where I really found this kind of, like you said, that deeper space and the deeper work started to happen. Then fast forward a couple of years, I could disclose what had happened. And then I could, lean into more of the other human pieces of it where I can share with people, they can give me guidance. I can do therapy on, all those kind of things can start to happen. But the initial thread for me was this internal piece of connecting to some type of source that was not related to this third dimensional material realm. So,
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's sort of a commonality that we share where when you've been through really challenging times into the depths of like, do I do work or do I end it? Right. On the other side of that is laughter or joy on some of the same things, but that darkness is real when you're in it. Um, how do you find purpose now, Jeff?
well, I think you touched on it when you were giving the better version, the cliff notes of my monologue, which is like this idea of how am I being useful and helpful in the world, right? Like that's the basis for all of it is like, you know, I'm only able to stay energized and engaged with like these disciplines I need to participate in as a man in long-term recovery if the reason for doing them is based around other people. Like the selfishness of making myself feel good, that there's not a lot of fuel in that tank. Like I'll feel pretty good pretty quickly and then I'll just coast. But if I remember that I'm doing the work so that I am prepared and present when the opportunity comes to be useful and helpful, it really changes the whole thing. And so that's really the deal, right? Like my employment, I work in treatment trying to help people get to the care that they need. I have my coaching business and I help people get to the other side of like issues and things they're dealing with. I just try to bring my best self to life. And, you know, the thing of that, the secret of that, which you know as well as I do, is I feel really good when I'm doing that. It's not some hard thing. Like, you do that for a while and you start to build up this cachet of positive experiences where you feel value and you feel like you can see that you're helping someone and what a difference it's making. And man, that's a motivator moving forward for sure.
Mhm. When you're and this can apply to today or it can apply to when you were rebuilding back in 17, but there must have been days that were really hard. I know I have had in the rebuilds days that are hard. What did you do on those days when everything felt dark again? And maybe you didn't have those days, but
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think the practice that I really started trying to engage in at that point was finding something to be grateful for in the midst of those difficult days, right? Like, and sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes it's literally just like, just stay in the boat, right? Like, it, it's rocky right now, but like, just stay in the boat. Um, but my thing with that is like, number one, there's always something that I can find gratitude for, no matter how poor I see myself or the situation I'm in at the moment. There really is, and it can be the most the smallest little thing, or it could be some major thing. But regardless, if I'm igniting that little fire of gratitude in myself, it can help shift my thoughts a little bit. And I also think that piece of like staying present, right? Like in the hard days or the good days, like if I'm staying in the present moment, I'm less inclined to be even thinking about that, right? Like it's only when I'm drifting that I'm going, oh, this is a tough day. Man, how long is this one going to last? When is this over? Oh no, then I'm like, I'm not where I'm at. Um, and so again, like it was just really like that whole relapse situation. I mean, I say it now and I hear people say this, and I'm sure, I don't know if you agree or not, but like the most difficult experience in my life was going through that. And like I am now, almost 8 years later, immensely grateful for it because it completely transformed the way I live. And I don't know if you feel that way about the tough times for you, but it's definitely been my story.
yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't know. It's transformed me. Tough times have transformed me for sure. And I think they've taken me to a depth that I appreciate. I don't know if I would have invited it willingly.
Safe. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I mean, I don't know, and I think we may be alike on this, I'm not sure, but I feel like I've done work when I've been forced to do work. I'm not just like, "Let me grow."
Oh,
I'm just like,
gosh, yeah.
"I wanna grow." I mean, some people are like that, which, like,
I don't
amazing,
get them. I love
but
them,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, I'm with you.
yeah,
Yeah, I know. It's
but yes, my answer is yes, but generally forced to
yeah,
grow,
yeah,
forced.
yeah.
Mhm.
You know what? I think it's interesting in this kind of like idea of the rebuild, right? I'll be totally truthful. I have not really thought about that much. The only time it comes up is like when people will say to me, like, "Oh my gosh, like look how good life is now, right? You've got this great job. You guys have a house, your wife, and you got a baby on the way, and all this stuff, and it's like, it's true. And I'm incredibly grateful for those things, right? But like, there's no arrival point, right? I'm not building to some arrival point where like I'll get there and the day will come where I'll sit down on my throne and go, I'm here. It's like, I think the nature of life and existence is like, if I can stay in the state of continually like moving towards, really until I get to the place where my faculties won't allow me to, right? I mean, I think we all get to that place where the physical machine starts to break down and we can't move or think and all that. And like, I'm sure those days will come. But up until that point, like, I'm going to keep pushing and moving in that direction. I don't know that I'll force myself to grow like the way we had to through the tough times, but I'll forever be like, there's not going to be a day where I sit down and go,
Mhm. No, I mean, I definitely agree with that 1,000%. Jeff, what are some key elements that got you through? If you were to name them, people, tools, what got you through foundationally?
well, I will tell you that I think that there's a few. There's a few. And I'll try to parse them out in terms of like mental, physical, spiritual. In the realm of like mental and spiritual, I think being a man in recovery and like getting reaffiliated with the 12-step program that I'm a part of and like having a sponsor and doing that work was really huge. Um, I think again, in that realm, like the woman who's now my wife was my girlfriend at the time of all that. And she stayed with me through that. And that relationship was vitally important. Um, you know, and there were a few, I would count them probably on two hands, the people that were close to me, but those relationships, that human connection like not having to listen to my own mind about who I am, having people close to me that love me enough to be there was like a big deal. So I think that, and then I think the third piece in terms of like leaning more into kind of like spiritual and physical is like a foundational piece for me now that has been since I got sober again is exercise. Um, Vitally important for me to get the chemical kick of exercise. Um, you know, I am still someone who has substance use disorder, so I like to feel good. And so I am willing to put in the effort and the work to go through a sweat to get to the place where I feel that. And I hold that pretty close and dear. And then the
What
meditation piece.
what's your thing right now, exercise-wise? Because I'm a huge I was a
Yeah, oh,
D1
yeah.
athlete
Well,
too.
I
Yeah.
always like in terms of like weightlifting, that's always vitally important for me. And my body is like truthfully like old. So I can't do like CrossFit or anything like that if I want to
Yeah.
walk. Um, but I just got one of those assault bikes. So
Oh,
that's where I'm
yeah.
doing my cardio right now. Such a murder session. It's great though.
Yeah.
Um, get out in the garage, get on the assault bike, turn on the Bluetooth and just rock out. And
Have
then
you spun? Have you actually done, like, spinning?
I've done spinning classes before. You like clip in.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Obsessed.
It
I'm
feels
obsessed.
it feels like a dance. I can't tell if I'm at a rave or if I'm in a class. It's unbelievable. At least the ones that I've been to. It's like a party.
But, like, that's the thing. Shout out to Cycle Bar West Hartford. I, am there constantly, and it's because it is sort of it's like a party, but then you leave and you're like, "What just happened to me? This is amazing." Like, am I high?
Yeah.
Did I did I
Yeah.
use in there? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's awesome.
totally.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
You
Yeah.
should
And that
try it next time you're
well,
here.
look, I mean, I want you to remember you in no, I'm gonna use this is me using my size in my own defense, and I shouldn't do that. But I do think that my 6'7", 285-pound butt on a bike in a spinning class is different than you. Um, and that experience is different for me that it's for you. Because it's kind of like a gorilla riding a tricycle. I'm just gonna say. So, you know, I love
We
that for you. And if they make a supersize spin bike, I
Mhm.
might get into it. But for the meantime, I'll do my elliptical and my assault
Yourself.
bike, and I'll be
We'll
lifting
find
over
you one.
5 days a
If
week.
you come out east, Jeff, we're gonna find you.
I can't
I'll
wait.
have them hook you up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, but exercise and it's those are mine. You just literally named mine. Meditation too, huge in the dark days, especially.
Oh my gosh, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, if someone's listening right now, Jeff, and they're struggling, maybe they're at a bottom point, maybe they're in the middle of a rebuild, what would you tell them? What words of encouragement?
Words of encouragement would be like, just hold course, right? Just keep going, right? That's not an original phrase from me, but just keep going. And I think like in terms of practicality with someone who's in the midst of like calamity, because a lot of my coaching clients are in that space, right? I really try to say like, let's look at the areas of your life and what is a very small difference you can make that will create change. Like, orient towards action and orient towards small, positive, incremental changes. Like, because it's overwhelming on the front end. When I'm in the midst of like things are good, I'm swallowing the entire burrito in one bite, right? And it's like, wait, slow down, one at a time. There's like a multitude of ingredients in that burrito, and each one needs to be addressed individually and just try to make it smaller. You know, I think that's the best thing to do. Keep going and make the action small.
Mm. Yeah, it's hard in the moment, right, sometimes to remember, like, that there is light at the end of that tunnel. Because I think you said, like, "I didn't even think I was in a tunnel," right? Like, you didn't even know where you were, but it is one foot in front of the other, however small, however long, right? There is the other side. I feel like we could sit here and name all the circumstances, and there is another side if someone is struggling right now. Jeff, I've been asking everyone this, but what's 2 tools that you're using? One that's like technology, an app, maybe a person you're following that just motivates you, and the other is what's something like back to basics, like nature or rest, something old school that you're
Cool. I
using.
love that. Well,
Mhm.
I'm not like a voracious reader, but I do read. And right now I'm reading this Malcolm Gladwell book called Talking to Strangers.
Oh, yeah, he's my favorite.
It's so good. I really am like enjoying that. And that's not technology, but I mean, it is like a thing um that's bringing me joy in the moment. And then the back to nature piece, you know, as a homeowner, I feel like an old man because I care about my grass now. But one thing that I'm doing is like spending time in the yard, just enjoying the dogs and being outside. Right now in the Pacific Northwest, it's like beautiful. And this is the time of year to really be out there and enjoy it. So I'm just like enjoying that, enjoying having a healthy lawn. And if I'm 115 when I say that, please let me know. But I mean, because it's like so real, but whatever. Like it's cool. It feels good. I pull up and the yard is green and pretty, and I'm like, look at this. And I get out there and I walk around and I hang out. And yeah, I try to enjoy that. It's funny how that you mentioned that because I think that is an element in our modern world we often forget that like we are meant to be connecting to the environment we're a part of. We are not separate from this planet we live on. Like we are a part of, and we forget that because there's so much screen time and interior time and all that stuff. So I'm really glad you asked that question because I think it's really important.
Yeah, there's something about rooting in, right? Like taking your shoes off. Well, I don't know if you do that, but I would. Like
Grounding,
walking.
yes, yes.
Mhm. Just like feeling that grass that you spend so much time obsessing over, right? Like under your feet. And there is though something about like rooting into that that's powerful. And technology is like it has its benefits, right? Like this, we're having a conversation that we maybe wouldn't have been able to have a decade ago, but or 2 decades ago. But it also has its limitations. And so getting back to those basics, I feel like now more than ever is so vital. So vital.
Agreed.
You also don't sound 100 years old. You
Okay,
sound
good.
like a proud homeowner.
Okay, good, good. And I'm not over the top. I mean, I'm not over the top. I just, I care. And it feels good to care about those kind of things.
Yeah, send us a picture. We'll include it as an overlay so everyone can see how you're
Okay. Okay. The
I'm not joking because I'm glitching, so it's gonna be mostly you anyway, so we'll put your graph in.
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
Um, Jeff, if people wanna find you, find out more about your coaching, find out more about your story, what's the best way to connect with you?
The best way is through my coaching website because that links kind of everything. That links to my brand and, any kind of like appearance stuff I've done. And that's www.hatch-coaching.com. It doesn't have tabs, which I know you told me to add, but all the info's there. And if you want to know more about me or anything that's happening,
I'll add your tabs. If you give me the back end, I'm telling everyone right here.
you're a good friend.
It'll
You're a
take
good
me 10
friend.
minutes. I'll
Yeah.
add your
Yeah.
Jeff Hatch, thanks so much for sharing your experience, and hopefully this is just the beginning of your story. It's so powerful, and I think it's really going to help a lot of people. So thank you so much for taking the time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I always love talking to you. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks. We'll be right back on WellSeekers. Thank you so much again to Jeff Hatch for sharing his story. And what a powerful story. I think sometimes when people have what we consider societal success, and if you're listening, not watching, I just air quoted success because I think that's such a word that's subjective. So when we have societal success is what I call it, because I think success is being joyful, being kind, right? Being someone who gives and thinks about others. To me, those are markers of success, but I think society has different definitions of success. And when you see someone with that and they have fallen or had the experiences that Jeff has had, I think it just shows us that we are all susceptible to these human experiences, right? And the path back is the same. And that's what this 6-part series has been all about for us and why I wanted Jeff to close it out. If you're listening in order, maybe you're just listening to this episode, but because it just felt like a powerful story to remind us that we're all just doing this thing called life. We're all in the process of rebuilding in one way of another or another, right? Sometimes we fall a little bit farther. Sometimes you're on an elevator. Maybe you're getting off on floor 3 and rebuilding. You haven't plummeted to the ground floor or the basement, which is oftentimes where I find myself rebuilding from. Usually, I have to burn everything down and then I start to rebuild. I don't suggest that, but, um, I think Jeff's story definitely is one that resonates with me, and so I hope it resonated with all of you. I think that if you've listened to the show, we always close with tools that you can take with you. One of them is digital, and then one of them is more like offline. Essentially, I say old school, but really it's like offline. One of the tools I want to share with you, if you are listening, I'm holding up my phone. I'm going to tell you what I'm holding up, but this is an app. I don't know if you can see it. No one's texting me right now either. That's happened before where you guys have gotten to see my texts. But it's called the Reframe app if you're listening. It's about drinking less and thriving. It's an app developed by scientists. It uses neuroscience to reframe. It's the number one alcohol reduction app right now. It's built to help you drink less, live more is their tagline. So whether you want to quit drinking or scale back, and maybe you are not an alcoholic, right? Maybe you just want to scale back. Reframe uses neuroscience. It uses an evidence-based approach to help track your progress. It's a private community, by the way, if you're worried about your information being exposed. So basically, you have alcohol education and ways to reframe your mind so that you drink less. I have had friends use this app and speak so highly of it. I've had clients use the app and they have liked it as well. So check it out if you're looking for a tool. And again, that this is not an endorsement of if you have a problem, just do the Reframe app. I want to be really clear about it. It's to me, these are like one tool in a larger toolbox. That's how I view these things. So if you want to add a tool to your toolbox, that may be one that sticks with you. I think the offline one that I feel like there's so many programs that I've heard about, and I'm not going to name them. We've even had people on the show talk about programs that help people stay sober, and they've been phenomenal. But one of the things that I think we forget about is there are free programs. Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, right? Food Addicts Anonymous. These free programs do exist. So if you're looking for a way to stop drinking, or you think you are an alcoholic or an addict or a gambling addict, right, or a sex addict, these 12-step support groups are free and they're out there, and they're all about my favorite word, which you probably know. Well, one of my favorite words. I have way too many favorite words. It's like my favorite color. I can't pick a favorite color. I always say rainbow, which one of my nephews says as well as their favorite color. And it really just means we're indecisive, I think. But I think that there's lots of different ways uh, to to paths to sobriety, but one that we forget a lot is AA, NA, right? Like those are free resources if you are looking and think you may be an alcoholic or an addict. Um, to check out, and you can just go online, literally throw into chat, or if you're using Google, like AANA, Gamblers Anonymous, and your local branch is gonna come up. So um, community is one of that's why I was talking about the rainbow and favorite color. Community is one of my favorite words because I really think there's community in those support groups that sometimes you can't get online. There are online communities for sure. This is an online community where we can connect. But when you're going through something like that, sometimes I think there is this in-person aspect that's really incredibly valuable. Again, not an endorsement for anything, just sharing tools that may be added to your toolbox. None of them may be for you as well, but but again, this is not an endorsement for any of those things. Just want to be incredibly clear about that. They're just resources out there that may or may not help you on your healing journey. This has been an incredible 6-part series, helping you rebuild from the ground up, or from whatever floor you're on. Or maybe you are rebuilding and you just wanted to learn about these tools for when the rebuild comes. Because one thing I've learned is that in one way or another, we all have a rebuild in life, big or small. And we want to be here for it. We want to help you support it so that you don't have to burn everything down like I tend to do, or restart every single time, right? There are pathways to rebuilding wherever you are that can feel supportive and feel safe and help you feel surrounded by goodness even through the pain. And I think that that's the point that I love to be in, is like, even if I'm experiencing emotions that aren't pleasant, I can still create these pathways that are, to get through them, whether it's through people or through art or through breath work, or through movement, or right, all the things we've talked about. Those are things that have positive emotions and make me feel good, that can surround me during the times where I'm not feeling as good. Life is complex, emotions are complex. It's not good or bad. What I've learned through these processes, through my training, through life, is that like there's usually multiple things going on at the same time. You can be happy and sad, right? Like that is the nuance of emotion, and that is the nuance in life, is that we can be multiple things at the same time. And the way to get there and the way to do that is through all the things we've shared here. So, from all of us here at Well Seekers, I just want to say thank you again to Jen, my producer. Thanks to Chris, my editor. And thanks to all of you for taking the time to be with us here on this series. We're so grateful for you. That's an understatement. We know that time is your most precious asset. So thanks for spending it with us. Thanks for being a part of the Well Seekers family. And thank you for letting us be a part of yours. And we'll see you next time on Well Seekers.